Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Psychic medium Helene Olsen and paranormal researcher Patricia Baker. Here are Supernatural Girlz.
Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Supernatural Girlz. I am Helene Olsen, and my fabulous partner in crime is the fabulous Patricia Baker. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Helene. How are you this evening?
I'm good, but, I can't believe it's already April 20th, 2013, another lovely Saturday evening in New England, and we have a few issues to talk about before we welcome our fabulous guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, otherwise known as Rick.
Yes, the fabulous
He's amazing.
Rick.
He's amazing. Yeah.
He is amazing, and we're so lucky to have him on our show.
It's just incredible, but I think the audience might be interested in what's been going on in our neck of the woods this week.
I think so.
And we are both in Massachusetts. You're in the far western end of the state, and I'm about 10 miles north of Boston. And so it's been quite a wild week of intense emotion here, Patricia.
It really has. Oh, my goodness, what a roller coaster ride. And I know there's some semblance of peace in some way because the perpetrators have been identified and caught. But it's still, my goodness, what everyone has been through. And our prayers are with the families and the victims of this horrible terrorist crime. And we really wish them a good recovery as best as they can possibly get in a situation like this. But again, it's wonderful last night to see on the news everybody coming together in Boston, congratulating the police, thanking them, and all the federal agents for everything that they did. So, that's the only upside to this is watching people come together at the end of this horrible nightmare.
It really was remarkable, and it's amazing how tragedy can bring a community together, unfortunately. But the thing about it, I think that, happens really is when we see these heinous, horrifying issues around the planet. It touches our heart, and you and I and many other people send light and love and prayers to all of those places devastated on Earth for many different reasons. But it just feels so personal, so close, when you're actually familiar with the area or people in that area or you've spent a lot of time in your life in those places, and so it's just I have to say, it's a very different vibe.
Well, it is, and it kind of drives the point home. It can happen anywhere. And that's why we always have to be vigilant. We've got to pay attention. We've got to look out for one another. That's really what it boils down to. Yeah.
Well, we'll continue to send light to all the families that were directly affected by this horror, really, and hope that we can somehow come together as a community of people on the planet to put a stop to this nonsense.
That's right. I'm all for it. Yeah. I'm all for it, really.
Yeah. And tonight, Dr. Miller will be talking to us about survival and how to get through times when the grid may be closed down and so forth, right?
Oh, my goodness, yes. There's so much right now to consider that can go horribly wrong. So from these severe earthquakes that have been predicted and that we've actually been seeing, the New Madrid fault, that if that blows, that'll split the country in half, and severe water shortages, possibly severe food shortages, the GMO issue with our food. There's just so many different places that catastrophes can come from at this point in our time on Earth. And, you watch these shows like Doomsday Preppers and you think to yourself, can they really get their bug-out bag together and get the heck out of the city? I don't see it. But again,
I don't know.
What we're going to talk to Rick about. He's the expert, so we're going to find out from him.
I have to admit I watch those shows only with one eyeball, not two.
Yeah.
I find some of the information to be terrifying, and as much as I think a lot of it is valid information, and I certainly have my supplies at hand, I do. I think I need supplies just because of blizzards and icy conditions and times when the electricity goes out anyway. But, watching those shows with one eyeball, I mean, it's just kind of terrifying in a way, and we really do have to be empowered and hear some of this information.
Well, I'm so grateful that Rick's on the show tonight, because I know that Rick has said, listen, I'm not about doom and gloom. There's a reality to what we're facing today, possible financial collapse and all these other things. So you have to kind of really pay attention to what's going on. But at the same time, that's why I wanted Rick on the show, and I know you did too, because he's an expert in survival. He really has a broad view of this whole thing, and he can give us specific information that can make a difference between life and death. So this is going to be a great show.
It is. And I have to add that, I've talked to a few clients about this particular issue, and I really want people to not be caught in terror or fear about this. It's about empowering yourself.
That's
to understand the information, and then continue your life and find as much joy and celebration as you possibly can, because we're going around in this lifetime, and we have to balance our lives, and we have to find a way to find peace and happiness, too.
We do, absolutely, and I know we're all on the same page about that. So, again, but we need this information from Rick, that's for sure.
Well, I just want to tell you, I had a wild week this week, Patricia. I mean, between everything going on in Boston, and there were a couple places we couldn't go because a lot of the city was closed off, and all that sort of thing. And it was just school vacation on top of it. So
the twins were home.
Yeah, they were home, and that's always fun. I really have fun with them. But on top of all that, my computer had a virus. So for 2 days I was banging my head against the wall, because you know how much I love the computer, Patricia.
Real love
the bane of my existence. Yeah. So my poor friend Jim, who I know is listening, please accept my apology. Jim's a favored listener of the show, and we love Jim, but I couldn't get back to him this week. It's just been too crazy. So I'll call you next week, Jim. He was really nice and offering to help.
Thanks for your good thoughts, Jim, on Helene's computer.
Yeah, but it seems to be all set now, so at least that worked. Yeah. Now, next week we're having Michael Chaplin. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Michael Chaplin is the son of Charlie Chaplin, and he is an excellent author. He has written a fabulous book called A Fallen God, and the show is going to be all about destiny. We don't talk much about destiny in these modern times. I mean, it was a big deal in ancient times. There was a whole sense of destiny. Everybody had a destiny. Well, we have a destiny also, but again, what Michael's going to be doing in the show next week is talking about that, bringing that to the forefront for our listeners. So what is your destiny? And he's a wonderful, wonderful speaker, and we're going to learn a lot about this entire subject from ancient times to today.
That should be a fascinating show. I'm really looking forward to that, because I think I'm a little confused about destiny sometimes, so I can use the information too,
Oh, yeah, he's going to set us straight. He will, I know.
So what people should do is go on over to supernaturalgirlz.com and sign up for our newsletter, because we send out an excellent newsletter every week containing information beside what's coming up on the show. And next week we'll be giving away a copy of Michael Chaplin's book. And also this week we have a book from Dr. Miller as well.
We have an autographed copy of one of Dr. Miller's books that will be given away to a very lucky subscriber. So if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and run on over to supernaturalgirlz.com and subscribe, and you'll have a chance to win the book.
It's awesome. That's very generous. Very nice. I just want to remind the listening audience that Monday evening I will be running an energy circle. It's a free energy circle. Anybody can call in. It's really, really simple. All you have to do is go on over to angelslighthouse.com, which is my website, and all of the instructions to call in on the telephone conference are right on the home page. And what happens during this circle is a huge energy transmission, and sometimes divine beings of light come through and channel messages to the group on the phone, and people also have space to receive their own information and messages. So it's quite a powerful event, and I hope that whoever is listening will be able to make it at 9 p.m. Eastern on Monday evening.
I'm going to be there, and I can tell everybody it is a very powerful event. I have done several of these with you, Helene, and what's really going to be good about this one is it's all about self-love. And I know everybody has goals they want to meet. They have things they want to have manifest in their lives, and guess where it starts? It starts with self-love. So this is going to be a very important clearing if you're interested in, again, increasing your ability to give and receive and manifest in your life. This is a good point of origin. So hope to hear your voice on the call on Monday.
Yeah, it'll be great. I always look forward to those calls. They're so much fun, and people really seem to get a lot out of it, so it's great.
It is great.
I think it's time to welcome Dr. Miller.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Yeah, before I put him live, I think we're having a little bit of technical problem here. I've seen a couple of calls drop off, so I hope that people are listening and are able to call back in again.
Oh, yes, because we should have said this. Blog Talk has been kind of under assault on several different fronts of bots and also fiber optic issues. So please stay with us, because even if our board goes dead, we'll be back on the air. We'll do whatever we can to keep bringing you this show, which is such an important show to listen to. But there have been some technical issues from the Blog Talk side, which is not their fault. But again, it's some things that have been happening over the last few days. So hopefully we'll sail through this without a problem.
I am praying, Patricia.
Pray hard.
Yeah. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, you're live on the air. This is Helene.
Hi, Helene. Can you hear me okay then?
Yes.
Hello?
You hear him?
Yes,
yeah,
we can.
Fine.
We can
okay,
hear
good.
you.
Okay, well, I needed confirmation. Gosh, you were going through all of this spiel of, viruses and all that, and then I couldn't get confirmation, and you started laughing, and I couldn't, you're maybe teasing me or something.
No, well, we can hear you fine, and welcome to the show.
Good.
We're thrilled to have you here. You are the man.
Thank you very much.
Are one of our favorite people.
Well,
you really are. We got we got so much reaction to the last time you were on. It was wonderful, and we enjoyed having you so much.
You bet. Thank you very much. I love your accent. I had forgotten. I did graduate work at MIT, and I had forgotten you've got a really wonderful accent. I had forgotten all about it.
Rick, I don't have an accent. I don't have an accent. You do.
It's lovely, too, by the way. It's very polite and lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, what would you like to know?
First of all, we would like to know, now, there's a couple of things here that are very important. We may be facing some catastrophes. We may be facing some earthquakes. We may be facing a financial collapse. We may be facing severe water and food shortages. So what we need to know from you is how to survive these things. What do we need to prepare to make sure that we make it through this trial by fire or whatever it's going to be?
Well,
I'd like to add to that. Go ahead. I'd like to add to that a little bit.
Okay, let's start with everything's going to be just fine, truly. It's going to be a change in the way we do things, like paradigms. Agriculture is in a complete change right now. Weather, there's no question that we're now experiencing a global event in weather changes. Today, we're being hammered by coronal mass ejections, the likes of which the Earth has never experienced before. Now, this bends electromagnetic fields and may interfere with your boards, like you're talking about.
Oh.
Imagine the grid going down for 3 days. That's highly likely in the next year that it's going to happen to almost all of us at some point. We'll have a time when we're going to have to bring out our candles and everybody gets closer because of shared hardship or something. That's how it works. And it's going to happen. And if you're prepared or have a sense of what to do, then you have no real fear because it'll be pretty straightforward. The movies on TV would depict terrible things and struggle. I would not want to live in New York City in a high-rise apartment if the grid went down and I had to go downstairs to go to the bathroom. Where am I going to do that? It could be very awkward. People that live in the country will have little or no effect. Food in a city. The reason that they talk about food like this is that today, with our centralized systems of food distribution, it's conceivable that an electronic spike, and this is on NASA's website, to expect delays in delivery systems. And if you're in a large city like Boston, your maximum amount of food is only about, 3.5 days? And then it has to be replaced, which means there could be, if the grid goes down and it hammers, electronic ignitions in automobiles or trucks, some discomfort. Now, stocked foods in the shelves, water probably is your single most important thing, with sanitation coming in as a close second. If you can't flush a toilet for 3 days, you don't have the water because there's no pump or electricity pumping your water, where are you going to go to the bathroom? You need to think about that.
That's a very important point, yes.
Well, these are all part of a bigger picture. Most people that have their own well in the country should spend $60 and get a hand pump for it, just in case there's no power for a period. You have to at least be able to pump it. If you're living in a city, you should have some stored water, because the city will go down, and where are you going to get your water? That's where the FEMA camps come in, and that's why be preparing for natural disasters, and there's going to be, like Hurricane Katrina or whatever. I mean, these things surprised everybody, and nobody was prepared, and look what happened. And so, well, you had on Hurricane Sandy, I mean, I understand. I don't know. I'm not living back where you are, but I understand there's some people that don't even have power, even as of today.
That's true. And that's how many months.
Well, then what does that mean? Well, and the problem is our grid design is so crazy. As a scientist, I can't believe it. If we have a massive grid collapse, and that could be happening by a coronal mass ejection, a big ELF spike, like a weapon going off, and it fries the large capacitor, Matt Stein is showing we don't even have duplicate parts to construct another one for 2.5 years. Now, Texas has its own grid. When the rest of the country, we're on a massive centralized grid that, in my opinion, is just asking for it. You can have a generator, and you can have, alcohol. That's what they do in Brazil. They heat their homes by doing solar alcohol. They convert something with a Jack Daniel's still, and then they mix eggshell to gel it, and they put it in the center of the room, and it heats the room.
Wow.
There's simple things you can do that do not have to, and you know what's happening? When I remember when we used to get snowed in, how everybody got closer together with each other, trying to help each other and be neighborly, kind of like this recent disaster that you had. Noticed how the whole city came together.
Yes, that's the upside of all of this.
That's exactly correct, and it's always important to notice that part.
Yes, it is. But you brought up something that has been a subject of great interest for many people, and that's the FEMA camps. Now, talk about that a little bit.
Our state has 3 of them. They're on my website. My webmaster died 2 weeks ago unexpectedly, and it's okay. It's okay. We have his computer, and it's now called Larry's Light. It's got him inside, and we're going to bring him back out. But yeah, he put up a post last month under my breaking news. You'll have to do a search on it. We're talking about the FEMA camps in each state. There are so many FEMA camps being built as we speak in each state. Oregon has 3 of them. 2 of them are old prisons that they've restored. Imagine that. Well, that's because, and each state has them. Maine has them. Massachusetts has them. You all have them back there. And there's a list for each state. You can find them on the Internet anywhere. And basically, in my opinion, they're kind of like Hotel Californias, where you can check in. But because it would be mostly about sanitation and water. If you don't have those together, where are you going to go?
Right.
And so that's what's going to happen is, okay, we'll all meet down at the schoolyard, and, we'll use the high school gymnasium. Good luck.
So what
that's
you're
what
saying
the FEMA camps are about. And once you're in the system, just like jail, my guess is it's going to be awful difficult to get out of it. And water will be your first concern, probably, not food. It's like 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food. So there's your priorities. And I would not live on the big island of Hawaii right now because of the bog. That's your 3 minutes of air. That air over there now it's got particulate matter from the volcano, and everybody is sick. It gets into your lungs like asbestos. It's in the micro particle size of it, and it just rips it apart because they're heavy metals, and the minerals are and they're micropies, so it's like they go in and they don't get absorbed. They tear apart things and your lung. So
people are having a lot of respiratory problems now on the main island?
Yeah, up in Kailua, I saw everybody there is sick now. Yes.
Oh my goodness. So
it's happening. I wouldn't want to live on Japan. Half of the population now probably glows in the dark. It's awful. And those poor people, 40 million people in Tokyo, and imagine the radiation levels that are in the ocean around there are being monitored all the time right now. I would say that Japan probably will not exist in your lifetime. It will fall into the ocean. It's on a precipice. You can look at it from space, and you can see there's nothing below it. And I'm surprised it still exists.
I am too. Yes, I agree with you.
That is a serious situation. And so another 8.4 or something in that category, and Japan will be history, and their culture and everything along with it.
This is coming at us from so many different sides.
But it doesn't have to be. It's Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell said that when you see the kingdom of the Father on earth, the apocalypse has already occurred. It is perpetual in its potential. Realize that this is all archetypal. 2012 didn't happen, and I didn't get picked up by the rapture. So, here I am. How about you? I'm still waiting to evolve, and I have decided that man does not have rights. He has responsibilities, like freedom. It isn't going to happen. You're going to have to go out and earn it. And man has a responsibility for his own personal evolution. If he wants to evolve, you have to do it for yourself. It isn't going to be handed to you because you believe in Jesus Christ or something of that nature. In fact, there is a high likelihood in the chatter I hear that the Catholic Church, this is the last pope. I have no idea what that actually means biblically, other than there's no reason for religions anymore, as it's now determined it's about spirituality. It isn't what you do, but how you do it, the quality, your intentionality, your destiny. what they call purpose, all of those things. And so there's an awakening that's happening, and everybody's getting it. They understand what I'm saying, and it's your own, what you want is what you make, and you have a responsibility to do it.
Well, those are the messages that are going around,
Well, I'm trying to, and the thing is, it's going to be a new world. It won't be you or me changes it. It'll be children under 5 years old. Educational reform is absolutely needed right now, more than anything else. Doomsday prepping, any of that crazy stuff. It's our children first. That happened with Sandy Hook, Aurora, and the rest of it. And this poor kid, even in Boston, that kid was only 19 years old in the first time. I don't know anything about what happened, but I have to say it this way. I felt guilty that we had somehow failed him in some way with education, family, and or values. To have that ability at that young age, it doesn't make any sense. There's something wrong with our educational system, and that's where I would start.
Well, I think there's a lot wrong with, a lot of our systems, a lot of our government systems and things like that, and that's where I think, people really need to understand that nobody's going to come riding up on a white horse and save them from any of these disasters.
No, that's right. You're going to have to go do it. Yeah,
and being self-responsible means that you pay attention to the things that you've just mentioned, water, food, air. How are we going to provide for ourselves and our family members if the grid goes down, if there's a major earthquake, if the food supply is disrupted?
Basics. Yeah, we can go through some basics. Water is going to be your first major concern. So let's talk about water. A person can only live 3 days without water. That's it. I was 4 days in a lifeboat. I ended up drinking my own urine. Urine turns out to be sterile. And while it grosses many people out, if you have no water, I read something, someone told me something about being dehydrated. When you're thirsty, you are already 5% dehydrated. You need to hydrate yourself if you even feel thirst. If you're really thirsty, you're 10%, and that verges on, not terminal, but you can really do damage. Now, if you want to know the amount of water each person should consume daily, that would be to take the weight of the person, divide it by 2, and drink that number in ounces each day. So if you're 200 kilo, that means you want 100 ounces of water. And that's not even talking about flushing it, washing yourself, or sanitation.
Right.
We're talking about internal, yeah.
Right. So then how much water should people attempt to store so that they have
I recommend 3 days. Yeah, I recommend 3 days for every person and every animal in the house.
And
you
that's
figure out the weight,
water.
That's how much you store. It's 3 times that in glass. That's what I would recommend. Everybody's different. That's what I recommend. 3 days.
Okay.
And then you have 2 days to go look for water if you don't have water by the first day.
Right. So you go out in search of.
Yeah,
and then,
finding it out, pulling it out, making it potable, whatever. I would say the Center of Disease Control receives over 4,000 cases each year of illness due to drinking contaminated water. Dysentery, typhoid, hepatitis. You've got, in most city water, H. pylori, which is a worm. That means everybody needs to go through some kind of deworming process every couple of years. You should have in stock water purification tablets. Again, 3 to 4 days. You don't need piles and piles. If something goes down longer than 3 days, you're going to have to rethink everything.
Yeah, I would say
including your computer and your love for the internet.
Yeah, we're going to have to rethink a lot.
I often thought the computer was an alien-based life form. I actually wrote an article called Alien Presence on the Internet. Had to do with the way we set up quantum computation algorithms and a SETI program that was developed by NASA. it's crazy, but, there's something else going on out there than are just thinking it's hook up with a big dictionary, Wikipedia. Give me a break, man. Something else is going on.
I have no doubt.
I'm going to use this opportunity to take a break, Rick, okay?
Sure.
And I want everybody to stay tuned because we have some great questions for Rick on how we can prepare ourselves. We'll be back in just a moment.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Sometimes life can be a challenge. Would you like insight and guidance to help you make the best choices right now? Contact Helene at angelslighthouse.com to make your personal appointment for a psychic reading or energy alignment. Helene is a direct channel to the angelic realm and is remarkably capable of connecting to the living as well as to your loved ones on the other side. Helene is available to clients all over the world via phone or Skype, and it's simple to set up a group reading anywhere. Visit angelslighthouse.com, where you'll find an easy way to schedule right online. And while you're there, sign up for the Angels Lighthouse newsletter and receive information on all the free energy circles, giveaways, and jewelry with a message. Visit angelslighthouse.com and contact Helene today.
Thank you all for staying tuned. We're back with Dr. Richard Allen Miller, also known as Rick. And Rick, I'm fascinated by your idea of 3 days on good, pure water. Why did you say 3 days?
It's hard to say. Basically, if it's longer than 3 days, there's going to be a whole bunch of other things that go down wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're going to maybe have to go to a more organized facility. It could be comets or, there could be, it's hard to say what's going on and what to prepare for. 3 days is a good snowstorm, or put it that way.
Right.
Yeah, and if you can bat out 3 days, that's all the worse that any of it will most likely be 99.9975. Now, the 1% that goes underground is a doomsday prepper. Please understand the first word in his name. It's doom. And, there are the Madrid fault line, like you're talking about. I mean, if that goes down, for example, there are 14 reactors on there that are Fukushima-like with open, spent plutonium rods exposed and outdoors. How do you feel about that one?
I don't feel good about that.
Exhibit A, why I think that nuclear power should be, as a physics point of view, the first addressed issue. Not the grid going down, not, pharmaceutical houses giving our kids drugs, but it would be, that concept of nuclear power is crazy. In my opinion, it is antiquated. We close everything down in Oregon and California, and only Hanford is still operational, and guess what? They're dumping radioactive waste as we speak into the Columbia River. 6 barrels are leaking. They can't stop it. Oh, go figure. Now, there was last year a small tactical nuke-like event up in the Great Lakes region. What was that? Nobody said it. It spiked. I have a place on my website that shows it's upgraded every minute on nuclear radiation and other kinds of biohazard spills, whatever, anywhere in the world with data on it. And you can go there. It's called Emergency Central, and it's a composite of several things that I've pasted together, and so it gives you an update of what's going on. Like if there's an earthquake, you could go there and get the information immediately on what's going on and where it was. Now,
well, we have your website listed on the Supernatural Girlz site.com. But could you say your website again for the audience?
Oh, sure. It's my name, RichardAllenMiller.com. I'm A-L-A-N for Allen. RichardAllenMiller.com.
Now,
and on the side is Emergency Central, and that's where you'll find the FEMA maps and other things that are up there. They'll all be there so that you can figure out, what's going on. If there's an event, you can go on the Internet. My site will have, breaking news, like what's going on anywhere on the ring of fire, that kind of thing. Madrid fault line is serious. The fact that there are 14 similar Fukushima-like reactors on that fault line is crazy.
It really is. And you bring up another scary point, which is the poisoning of the people here and around the world with all different kinds of substances. It could be nuclear.
Listen, I remember when Bendix was dropping batteries in bottoms of dump piles, and then my little girl got sick with leukemia. Yeah, and that because that was up in Watertown. And so she died when she was 15 because of pollution. It's everywhere. That's why you can't really trust things like your water sources.
Well, yes, I agree with you, and I think that's something that people tend to turn a blind eye to. I think pure water is so critical, yet we have so very little of it, and these purification
I'm going to go further on water. Water is also now called memory water or structured water. We are having a new era of physics, understanding the concept of what true pure water really is. There are many forms of it. On Mars, for example, it remains as a slushy ice at 100 below Fahrenheit. It's a new structured form of water. Any of you nerds that want to know further, you can go to Dr. Jerry Pollack at the University of Washington School of Anesthesiology, the School of Medicine, Anesthesiology. He's professor emeritus in the world right now, and has a new book out called The Nature and Structure of Water, which will describe the many forms of it and why it is critical. A ceramic filter, for example, will take out almost 99.9% of all contaminants out of the water. It won't, for example, take strychnine out, though, or arsenic. And arsenic, we have a lot of that in our water out here because we have serpentine or volcanic soils. You have to be very careful where your water sources are. You can't just assume that it's pure water. Even if it's a running stream, some animal upstream could commit suicide and have it full of coliform and other, microorganisms that are extremely toxic. E. coli, whatever.
Now, I've seen some, I've seen some filters that you can buy. Some of them even look like big straws, and they're supposed to be effective at taking, I guess, not all of it, but 99% out.
Yeah. Your cheaper filters like a Brita will be what I run in my kitchen. Berkey's are a little better. In fact, they kind of really are. You can take water and throw a food dye in it, and it'll take the dye out. And, that's usually a very small chain molecule, so that's a pretty good deal. I use pH is essential. Soda and bottled water are running below 7. 7 is neutral water that comes out of the ground. What you really want is slightly alkaline water running at 8.4 pH. That will mean that rather than having to replace the water in your bone marrow, it will metabolize rather than go straight to the bladder.
Mm-hmm.
They have technologies with electrolysis that'll go up to 9 to 11 pH. Not necessary. Soda.
Right. You've got to have electricity for that, right?
Yes. Soda is toxic, and I don't drink soda of any form ever again. It is at 6.4 and is literally toxic. And we're not even talking about the sugar or formaldehyde-like things from aspartame. Now, we're talking about the pH of it is extremely toxic to the body. And bottled water that most people use, if it's in plastic, there's with UV light and the way it's hitting it, will probably drop it around 6.8, which means it's not really functional. Now, you can change that easily with baking soda, just a little tiny pinch. If you go to a restaurant and they serve city water or some awful excuse me. If you go to a restaurant, usually it's awful water. You can taste the chlorine and things like that. A little spritz of baking soda and a lemon will help metabolize that water and make it healthier for you. It's still not good, and actually, as I get out into the universe, I'm going to start to walk my talk more, and I'm going to have my own cook that prepares foods if we go to a restaurant or something. I'm going to be very firm about it in terms of grass-fed beef, that kind of thing.
I can understand exactly why you're saying that, because so many times I've gone to a restaurant and the water is terrible. And
yeah, it is. It's city water.
I say I have to be gluten-free, and they serve me something with wheat in it. It gets to be
Well, it isn't even about gluten or the gliadin. It's about a gliadamorphin and some of the other things that are in wheat that Monsanto's messing with right now as a weapons. And so there are things going on with our food that are attacking us. And I basically do not eat any processed foods anymore. I don't eat juices. I don't drink juices. I don't eat very many grains. I am mostly liquids and vegetables, fruits.
And what about, do you eat any meats at all or any fish?
I do. I'm type O negative, and, they're trying to tell me I don't need to, and they may be right. And at some point, it would be lovely to not have to eat anything with a face or grandparents, but, I'm type O negative. I found, this is an interesting point, I found I had to eat fish in order to be healthier. Now, someone just contradicted that to me and had a valid point that there is a relationship to our concept of thirst and protein need. And there is the many faces of thirst, is the way I would title that. And when you are thirsty or dehydrated, there is a need to have certain enzymes that are not present in beans or rice. And so with hydration technologies today, it is probable that blood types will no longer be needed in terms of metabolizing your basic enzymes and proteins.
So are you saying, Rick, that if you don't drink enough water, if you're not fully hydrated,
then you have need for protein, yes.
Okay, that's very
interesting. And that is a couple of new books that are out of India, some Swami Hoopty-Doopy-Doo, I don't know his last name, but, he's one of those guys from Quest Bookstore or whatever. But his material is valid, and I found it interesting, and am going to keep my own diary on it. Because I basically would like to move away from beef. I think it's a terrible waste of space and resources. And while we have rangeland and the soil isn't any good for anything else, that's not true. And that's not true. And you can make soil again now that we understand mycorrhizae. And so I'm having an epiphany of my own while I do these urban farm projects, things that I'm doing and so on. I slowly am getting a sense there's something better to do in the way we're going to paradigm everything, the way we eat, why we eat, and what our food choices, why we would choose something over another.
Exactly, and I would love to see that change, because I see people making really horrible food choices that affect their health, and then they're in the medical system, which is another nightmare. But let's talk about food, okay? Let's talk about, now you said we have 3 days that we have to have for water to drink. That's just drinking water. What about
the average
food?
American
how
now is eating between 3,000 and 4,000 calories a day. That's crazy. The only way to lose weight is by eating 1,200 calories a day, period, end of story. If you eat 1,200 calories a day, and it's easily possible, I'm doing it right now, you will, in fact, lose weight. You will stop becoming a Walmart shopper. It is the wheat. Well, that's the way I saw it. I was starting to look pretty awful there, and I decided I've still got about 14 pounds I'm about to pull off. I'm down to 218 right now. I was 230. And it's just being mindful of calories. 4,000 calories is crazy. That's your food choices again. Your dairy products, your nuts, your grains. The food pyramid isn't even about nutrition. And so where did that come from? And howdy doody. And you ought to see the new food pyramid I put in for the 2020s, with Twitter, Kittles and Skittles. And it's crazy what we're eating.
Well, I
mean, it's crazy.
Yes, I agree completely. But let me ask you this. So then we've got our 3 days of water. How much do we need to store in terms of food? I think you said it was 3 weeks. Is that correct?
I have a full year of food in my house for myself, which means that if I had a dog or a girlfriend, she'd be out of luck. Just kidding. No, and I like to rotate the food through my house. I don't like it to sit in a bucket for 10 years and explode because of the sugars going into alcohol or whatever.
So what do you keep on hand? What do you store that you're comfortable with, given the pure way you like to eat? What are you storing?
Oh, I had a big pickle crop this year, and so I pickled a bunch of that, and I bottled it up, and I did the same thing with a couple of other of my veggies. I pickled them like squashes and stuff like that. Sauces like applesauce, I have that on hand where I canned it. Did you know the Americans consume like 25% of your food is actually sugar today? 25% of everything that you're taking into your body for protein, carbohydrates, 25% of it is sugar. That in a liter, a 2 liter of Pepsi is 53 teaspoons of sugar.
That's an enormous amount, and I know that some.
Well, that's why the nails rust in it. You remember when we put nails
exactly.
in it?
Yes.
Well, imagine what that's doing to your
rust
gut.
Off your metal. Well, yeah, and again, 200 years ago, people were eating very little sugar, and now it's increased exponentially.
Well, our top food groups, here they are. There's whole milk, cola, white bread roll, sugar, 2% milk, ground beef, white wheat flour, processed American cheese. There it is. That is what the American public is currently eating and why everybody is obese. There it is.
Well, it makes perfect sense, but what would your, say, top 5 things that people should have on hand or that they can easily store if they don't have their own garden, that kind of thing?
Yeah, here's one-day diet test to see how you do, and it's approximately, the cost is $5. I have a 15-ounce can of chili with beans. That's 580 calories. I have 1 5-ounce can of tuna. That's 100 calories. I have 1 can of green beans, 50 calories. I have 1 29-ounce can of sliced peaches. That's 600 calories. 1 pack of top ramen, 3 ounce. That's 380 calories. And the total calories is 1,710. That means I'm going to gain weight. My grams of protein is 76. and sugar is 131 grams. And that's a $5 a day. There it is. And it's not very healthy, but you can do variations on a theme. What I'm doing, for example, is I do a lot of stir-fry now with inexpensive grass-fed meat, beef, and I mix it with fruit and throw it on rice.
So what can they save? What do you think the average person should store up on if they don't have a way to can their own goods?
Okay, here it comes. 15 pounds of pinto beans, 25 pounds of rice, 5 pounds of sugar, 4 pounds of lard, a package of salt, and this will store well and only cost you $2.50 a day to feed one person. If you have 15 pounds of pinto beans, you'll have to soak them, 25 pounds of rice, 5 pounds of sugar, and 4 pounds of lard with a package of salt. That's only $250 a day, and that will feed one person. That's inexpensive.
And
those things store well.
How long, Rick?
Well, they'll store usually for 2 or 3 years. I like to do fresh sprouts, which means that what I'm storing are a bunch of seeds, and then what I can do is sprout them for my protein if I have to. Now, that's a good, radish seeds, whatever, garbanzo beans, whatever. Any of those seeds, if you had big jars of seed, you can make sprouts and have fresh, green proteins every day.
Every day, and they grow really quickly, right?
Oh, yeah. You can do them on cookie sheets. They'll be ready to eat in about 6 days. Usually most sprouts take about 6 days to sprout them. And if you have about 20 different kinds of seeds, now you have a very interesting salad that is protein-wise, it's right in there. It still has the sugars. All your foods have sugars in it. You do not need sugar. What you should try to do is become less diabetic by cutting back on your sugars. Start with fruit juices. Fruit juices are crazy.
They are.
That's where everybody gets
little
fat
nutrition in fruit juice. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, there's another category that's number 3 on the list. We've done water and we've done food. The third category would be your medicines. People that have, weak heart, whatever. In every disaster, illness and death can be avoided, but mostly that's what happens. So prescriptions you should have at least 1 to 3 months on supply on hand. You absolutely should have that. If you have a heart condition, you should have at least 3 months. You figure if there's going to be a weird, even a 3-dayer, what's going to get hit first? Well, the weapons will go first, and the pharmaceuticals will go second, before food and water. Now, I can tell you how to have a weapon that, an angry grandmother, and there's terrorism. You give her a water pistol with ammonia and set her out into the world. Now that's what I'm talking about is terrorism, angry grandmothers. And you've got to think,
somebody was prepared.
Straight up, what's going to stop a rabid dog in its track? You want to shoot it? I don't want to shoot anybody. I don't want to shoot anything.
So
ammonia in a water pistol will stop anything cold. And if you have a zombie horde coming after you, by the way, zombies would be East L.A. when they're out of food. People act crazy when they panic. And that's what we're really talking about is that mass hysteria thing that happens.
That's
That's what a zombie is. And it's so good for Boston and the way you guys hunkered down. And while there was a loss of business that is going to be, I guess, in the billions or something, it did bring the whole of the city together as a unit.
Yes, that's, again, the very best part of humanity when we can come together like that in the face of adversity.
You did. It isn't that you win. You did. And that was the part I saw from this side of the coast. I'm out here on the west, and that's what I saw was the whole city came together.
It did. Well, we all did in Massachusetts and elsewhere.
Yeah, bravo. And it showed the educational level of, before you panic, you lock down and you make it right.
Yes. However, I have to say that in a situation where there's a severe food shortage or some kind of interruption in the supply chain, I don't know if people are going to come together or it's going to be fighting over that loaf of bread in the grocery store.
That's why we have neighborhood watches and grandmothers with water pistols.
I want those grandmothers. But, Helene, didn't you tell me that during the last, whatever it was, I forget what crisis we were dealing with here in Massachusetts, I think it was a big snowstorm or something, didn't you say the police had to be called in your neighborhood grocery because they were fighting over the last few loaves of bread?
That's what someone told me. They were in the supermarket, local supermarket, and witnessed it, Yeah,
they're going to find that kind of mentality with road rage people and the rest of it out there. That everybody's angry, and that's because... Well, that's because the physical plane is where we get to go to be sick spiritually. That's a good metaphor. And once you figure out what your sickness is so that you're not, infecting everybody else with it, karma, then you can maybe pick up your destiny, your purpose from where you left off last lifetime or whatever way you want to look at things like that. And that's what it's about. The soul's code is about purpose and calling. Your calling and your character. The way you choose to do it, the little nooks and crannies, and then what your purpose is. And it turns out, from my worldview, that nobody is more important than anyone else. That everybody is here to do something really important, and it's all different.
It is.
And it's like a big jigsaw puzzle figuring it out. Some people don't get it right the first time, and they have to come back or something as a yapping dog or something. I don't know how that works, but I'm just kidding.
Well, some people don't get it right, and they end up back here, Rick.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, purgatory. It's a place where we go to be sick spiritually. When my father died last month, and I was very fortunate to have watched this Brazilian film called Astral City. And it's Xavier Boulevard. I forget who he's real famous, got a Nobel Prize for being like a Sister Teresa, And it basically shows a doctor dying on the on an operating table. And the moment he dies, the scene shifts to his head underwater in Zombieland, where he brings his head out of muddy water, to take a breath of air as he wakes up spiritually. And he looks around, and everybody's whining, like something out of Dante. And then his relatives come down in the light to take him home to Astral City, which is in the future, where everything is, spiritually. And that is what's wrong. The world at large is about greed and anger, rage, jealousy, desire, the deadly sins that we list. And and all of it, the woes of the world, the government that you don't like, it's all about greed. And that's really what it is. And we've had 400 years of monetary system. It doesn't work since Rothschild. It's time to move on. That's Zeitgeist, the movie.
Yeah, it is time, I think, for a lot of these systems that are in place that are just so burdensome and they're not working at all. In fact, they're working against us. It's time to see a positive change in that. But in order to get there, it seems like we're going to be walking through fire. And again, that's why everything you're talking about.
That's the trial by fire, you bet. That's the Van Allen belt collapsing, whatever. There's all kinds of metaphor. And it's every day for each of us separately. And that's the purpose part of figuring out your destiny again and what you're supposed to be doing. For myself, my mission statement includes 5-year-olds and teaching them how to make wildflower salads for markets in Atlantic City. How's that one sound? Grown by children, and they're free in the deli.
That sounds great.
That's what we're going to be doing.
We're going to use this. That's awesome. Are you doing that actively now?
Yes, I'm going to be doing that next week in Chattanooga. That would be our second hour of talking about how we're going to make some positive changes in this world rather than let it go down into a big black hole. Doomsday preppers does not have to be about doomsday. It could be prepper agriculture, about, getting off the infrastructure that we're currently enjoying, like the grid, and having a little more sovereignty, growing your own Jack Daniels for your vehicle.
Well, we'll use this opportunity. We'll use this opportunity to take another break, Rick, and when we come back, we'll be talking about agriculture in a difficult situation. Stay tuned.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm Helene Olsen, psychic medium and spiritual intuitive, and also co-host of this show, Supernatural Girlz Radio. And in honor of our new show, I'm offering you an exclusive 20% discount for any reading or energy work that you schedule during the month of April. Please take a look at my website at angelslighthouse.com and click on the Services tab. You can use the convenient online scheduler or send me an email. Be sure to mention your Supernatural Girlz 20% discount. Next week, during the breaks, I will be offering my inside tips so that you can feel better in these challenging times. Thank you for being part of the Supernatural Girlz family, and I'll see you at angelslighthouse.com. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for staying tuned. We did lose a couple of questions that were called in, and I don't know if that's a blog talk issue or what, but if you'd like to call your question in, you can call 646-478-0828. That's 646-478-0828, and we thank you for staying with us. Dr. Miller, you were going to talk about gardening and what we can do
Before we go there, one second. I have a couple of questions that need to be answered from the chat room. So,
awesome.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions.
Forward.
One question that we need to have answered by you, Rick, is about water filters. They want to know what water filter you recommend.
I use Brita right now in my home, just, from normal stores. I use a Brita filter. That's a ceramic filter, and it gets literally almost everything out of it. It will not take out H. pylori and other varmints that can get into the water, coliform, some of the other bacteria. That can be done with sterilizing the water. Some people use UV light. Some people hit it with an electric current. There are many different ways of doing it. Just even having it fall as a waterfall, going from one jug to another jug, actually energizes the water. Truthfully, it actually puts an energy into it like a waterfall does. That's why, like negative ions, you get the negative ion thing on that. Then I'm going to probably go to a Berkey, which has a larger capacity than the small, and a little better filter.
Okay, so
beyond that,
and Berkey are the two you'd recommend.
Yeah, those would be that's where it's inexpensive. That's a good start point. Yes.
Okay, and then the second question is, what do you think of investing in essential oils for medicine?
Pharmacy, aromatherapy. Certain things work, but my herbal pharmacy, and I don't write urban with urban farm would be HERB, urban. I wrote a book once called Urban Guerrilla Warfare for Females, and it was for a female clinic that wanted to use it for aborting and or lactation of their breasts, that kind of thing. There are a series of botanicals, a list of them, that are like pharmaceuticals. Let me give you an example. During World War I and World War II, everything came from raw materials. All our pharmacies came from raw materials. And when Germany cut off raw material sources, we started to synthesize. Today, that has gone over the edge with what they call standardized extract, where they have target chemistries, what they call target chemistry, like in cordyceps sinensis, it would be cordyceptin, which is a big spike in there of polysaccharides. However, it also has other polysaccharides and beta-glucans, and it turns out there's a more symbiotic thing, and why now a lot of the herbal pharmacy directions are now suggesting the importance of natural sources like valerian root for valerine sulfate, which is Valium. Rather than synthesizing, which is what it's done now, and your morphine and codeines that would normally come from scarlet poppy or something like that are now synthesized as oxycodone. And these are synthetics that are, to the body, it can't see the difference in terms of our current understanding of pharmacopoeia. However, for example, in aspen, leaf and bark, which is where we get acetylsalicylic acid, aspirin, it has natural buffers. And so I find it interesting and have moved myself now toward what I call full spectrum, where I'm getting a natural source that may, or like saw palmetto berry for my urinary tract. Let's say my PSA counts up and I have to worry about prostate cancer or something. You can use cranberry juice or hawthorn berry or saw palmetto berry.
Oh, and it turns out the essential oils, Rick, I know that
essential oils are odoriferous molecules. They're scent. And while it is true that scent is the only place where the brain actually is exposed to the physical world, scent goes right directly into the brain and has gating processes. The gut and stomach have other things. And essential oils are only one little tiny grouping of chemistries. And while I was there when I wrote the book, Magical and Ritual Use of Perfumes, I have a sense of the physical chemistries and how these things might be used. And aromatherapy has value, but so does belief systems. 50% of all healing occurs in your mind's eye, what you think is happening. Call it placebo, whatever. It's the power of thought. Imagination is where everything starts. By the way,
a lot of these essential oils, Rick, do have antibacterial and antiviral properties.
Antifungal, that'd be.
And these are the kinds that what you're asking about is not.
But that's antifungal. But you have them in tea tree oil. You have them in all your English thymes. Thyme and thymol, which you make paint with, is also an antibacterial. It's in everything. And out here in the West, we have a mythology that says wherever there's a toxin in the woods, the antidote grows right next to it. Okay, we have poison oak, and poison oak is like your poison ivy. It's like real bad. And right next to it, we have bracken fern. And if you get exposed to poison oak, then the bracken fern will semi-neutralize those formic acid and some of the other layering of chemistries that you'll find in what stinging nettle and some of these other things might do to you.
Well, there's something called thieves' oil, and I'm sure reaching back into history, I know people during the times of the Black Plague, the thieves would cover themselves in what was known as thieves' oil, and then they would steal from the bodies of the plague victims, and they'd never get sick. So I think there probably is a lot to be said in this question that's being asked right now in the chat room about the use of essential oils to stay healthy because of the antibacterial and antiviral properties. You can take some of these internally, and I know you can put them on your skin, but that's
spearmint, peppermint oil, all of this,
you know?
And basil for carbuncles, yes, but some of this is medicine, man. You know, it's like some of it. Because I'm a nerd, I'm a physicist, I have certain rules of engagement in terms of how I have to approach something. I can't talk about it as vibratory and, I have to talk about it as wavelengths. You know, I have constraints. And so physical chemistry, flavonoids, and your volatile flavonoids, the odoriferous molecules that you're talking about, is mostly in mints. I would say that 25% of all plants that people would call herbs and spices are mints. They're square-stemmed, Labiata family. There it is. Read it and weep. And they have a complexity of oils like your eucalyptus, citrol, citronellol, of those kinds of things. You have thymols, other chemistry very similar.
Like, these things have some powerful properties, and it might...
Well, they do, yeah. But I grow garlic, for example.
To invest in a few of these and have them on hand. In fact, like eucalyptus, what if somebody had an upper respiratory issue? They didn't have access to medication. Eucalyptus might help to clear the passages. So
it does. It's a bronchial dilator. Usually, it's the one they'll use on that, which is ephedra. Same thing as methamphetamine. That's what it's all from. All these plants have physical chemistry, and they come in all kinds of packaging. And what I'm trying to do is a garden that has my medicines in it right there. Now, in my go bag, and we never talked about.
Yes. How do you grow these things?
Yeah, but let me make this point. In my go bag, instead of having oxycodone or heroin for pain, I have an eagle bone whistle from the northern Cheyenne. Stiff it up. Instead of pain, for example, and I have a metaphor on this. Pain is actually an important signal to the brain in terms of what's being released and why. And if you cut that off with, a number, let's say codeine or Vicodin or whatever, what you're doing is slowing down your healing process, literally. I had 2 hip operations. The one I did with tramadol and the other I did where I whined. And instead of doing tramadol, I whined like crazy. I healed 4 times faster. Well, I was miserable, and I'm sure I wasn't very much popular the first day out of the hospital. But I chose to stuff it up and go through it, and then the second day was more livable than the first day, and by the 4th day, I was walking again, whereas on my other hip, it took me 10 days. And so when you take pain pills to mask or hide or reduce. Most of the pain pills that they would even recommend now don't really actually gate pain. What they do is they take your consciousness down to a place where you don't care. Now, quality of life, it's true. Like, it's the purpose of what pain is about. I have my medical marijuana doctor. Yeah, we have legal out here. That's what I use for pain. My medical marijuana doctor is an anesthesiologist, and he's writing a book on the pain of addiction. And when you start talking about addictive behavior, like with spousal abuse and gambling, now we're no longer talking about physical chemistries and site-selective molecule sites in the brain. We're talking about something that has yet been discovered in terms of PGO waves, occipital region of the cerebral cortex. There's something else going on as the purpose of things like pain. And once we understand them better, there's all kinds of tools. Hypnosis. I used hypnosis last month on a root canal. I didn't need any Novocaine.
See, most
people don't.
And what you're talking about is the whole point of this, which is being more self-reliant, finding things that work for you, and something that can be hopefully a skill you can learn or something portable you can take with you. But something
I'd love to meet some young lady would like to teach oils all over my body. You betcha. No, I'm kidding. Whatever works it's all part. Dog and pony show. Trust me when I say that. And my approach had been physical chemistry. That's very limited. However, It is the leading religion of this world today, so that's that. And it's not that it's real. The physics of it doesn't make it more valid, by the way. What makes it valid is your mind's eye, and that's why some people using these essential oils will absolutely swear by it. Aromatherapy is just like acupuncture, valid. It works, and so that's that.
So how are we going to grow these things?
How are
we going to grow these herbs?
Your little picture garden in the backyard. What we're doing in Chattanooga, this is so cool. The city, this is a town of about 64,000 people. They took 12 playgrounds that were kindergarten playgrounds, and they converted the playground into a community garden. They've got 12 of them. Now, that was 4 years ago. Today, they have ongoing farmers markets, growers markets, in 12 locations in the city, ongoing at any time during the day, Saturday and Sunday included. And what's happened is the master gardeners and the grade school kids meet at these gardens during school days and play, where gardening is now a recreational sport, competitive. And so it's a very cool concept. Instead of privatizing water, what we're doing now is possibly taking food off the monetary exchange and making it barter. What I'm doing is I've got a bunch of Head Start kids, and I'm going to teach them how to grow wildflowers for wildflower salads to be put in all the delis in Atlanta. That's a 3 million city, and they're going to put them in the delis, grown by grade school kids, and free as health foods. And the Atlanta children then are going to come back into Chattanooga as a AA school as opposed to a B school size thing, and they're going to grow Jack Daniels for the infrastructure of transit system that goes from one garden to the other, running it off alcohol off of one of the gardens. They're going to put a big still there and grow comfrey. That's what I'm setting up.
Now for people that have a small area, maybe a corner in their backyard or someplace, what kinds of crops would you suggest that they start growing?
Well, what do you eat? What do you enjoy most that you don't like to get at the store because you can't get what you want? It doesn't, tomatoes, well, maybe, might be your pesto. You know, Boston was a pretty good pesto market with basil. And actually, I have a farm out here that did 4 acres of basil for more than, it was 4 acres. They grossed $2.7 million selling frozen pesto through Neiman Marcus. Neiman Marcus ended up buying the company as a startup, and now that's where all your frozen pesto in New York and Boston come from, are these basil farms, mostly in, Maui or wherever. Now, in Boston, you have everything is climatized. We have different regions where we have groups of crops that do really well. You have all kinds of very cool plants in the local area that are native plants. Even your dandelion and chicory could be made into an herbal coffee substitute.
See, this is great information. That's absolutely true, and we certainly have no shortage of dandelions here.
Well, there it is. And
dandelion's a swear word in my neighborhood.
Dandelion leaf. There it is. You've got. What's that?
I said dandelion's a swear word in my neighborhood.
Well, if it had been mutated from a particle from Fukushima, we'd have Godzilla in your garden. Well, that's what it does when it mutates. Chicory and some of your barleys. There's rhubarb stevia. Now, here's one for an herbal coffee. Check it out. You grew dandelion and chicory, do a heavy roast on the root, not a light roast, a heavy roast. You hit it with rhubarb stevia and licorice mint, Agastaceae funiculum, and a hint of Madagascar vanilla bean. Now, imagine how that one would cup.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and guess what else? It doesn't have caffeine and tannic acid. And guess what else it doesn't have? Coffee is actually a religion out here on the West. I mean, we started with Starbucks. We're in Grants Pass. We're at 32,000 population in our city. We have 42 drive-up Dutch brothers. It's called the Dutch Mafia here. And they're everywhere. And the weird part is there's lineups at every station. I can't believe it. It's like a religious experience. And where coffee used to be, what, 25 cents? No, $3 for a mocha double jack. It takes a rocket scientist. Wait a minute. I'm a rocket scientist, and I don't even know how to order coffee. It's complicated.
So, again, here's a wonderful substitute you're talking about that's actually healthy for you.
Yeah,
and it's something that you can grow in your garden.
Some of the Indian herbs. Your beeches, you have halophytes there in saltwater tolerant plants, and some of those greens would be easy to get. Out on the west, we have beach cleaners that will sift the sand for driftwood. And guess what? I sell that driftwood as flotsam to Pier 1 imports by the truckload.
Wow. Well, now, let me ask you,
Rick, and all of that, Lowe's
Rick,
and
here out in New England, we have a very short growing season, and it's a challenge. So we try like crazy to get everything in the ground and pray that it doesn't
You've got juniper.
You've
got your gin mills all over up there. Give me a break, man. You can drink your way into pickling everything. I'm just kidding.
Don't you want us to be healthy?
Yes, juniper. There you go. That's turpentine for making paint, and they make gin out of it. I can't believe it. It's, potatoes. That's another vodka.
Well, let me ask you this. Somebody has a question for you here in the chat room again. They want to know about hydro gardening in the winter. What do you think about that?
Hydroponics, yeah. Hydroponics are good and bad. What happened in Winnipeg, this is a great story. That's from even really heavy weather, way more than you guys ever dreamed of, trust me. It's in the center of Canada up north. It's Kansas City. It's Dodge or something. And a bunch of bikers were growing marijuana under the ground in these hydroponic systems that they buried, and the Mounties came in and they busted them, and they gave the hydroponic system to the school kids of the high school in Winnipeg, and the high school kids are now growing fresh produce in the dead of winter as a class that they learn how to do in feeding New York City. Now,
they obviously have to do this inside in a facility.
Well, it's a hydroponic system. It's a closed system. It presumes that the universe outside is hostile. I started with lunar base alpha 1. Yes, it's grown. It's an inside system with its own lighting, its own heat, its own air circulation. You have control of the nutrient rather than growing it in dirt. Hydroponics uses vermiculite where you have a nutrient. By the way, the secret sauce for all plants is 1/3 chicken manure, 1/3 rabbit manure, and 1/3 worm casing. And with those three mixes right there alone, you have all the inorganic salts needed to run a hydroponic system in a closed system in outer space.
Wow. Well, if you can do it in outer spaces.
Yeah. Who's going to turn the worms today, man? I'm going after the free-range chickens.
I actually have a worm composter, and I love it. It's
important.
amazing.
The worm casings are part of the soil amendments that are essential to making good, friable, healthy soil.
Yeah, it is amazing what they do with the scraps and how quickly it's turned into something like gold for the garden.
All of your waste. What I did, I had 2 years ago, I had 650 free-range chickens on my farm. I had about 20 dozen eggs a day. I did it.
Wow.
And I did swapping out, and I would have a little business going with my chickens. And what I did is I found a microbrewery that was throwing away all their spent barley. And they had to throw it away, so I made a trade with them, and I'd give them so many fryers and so many dozen eggs for their big spent barley in their breweries. And let me tell you, my chickens were really happy running around, man. They were all stoned out of their mind and making the most wonderful eggs. A free-range chicken is so different than what you would buy in a store that it's really, and you know what? I did a thing with the Amish where I played Mozart. You make them a happy chicken. You play Mozart effect, and you feed them purslane, a ground cup, that grows like a succulent, and it creates a 25% lower cholesterol egg, just like that. You take the stress out of the chicken where you're playing classical music, and watch what happens next to your animals and your food chain.
And it sounds wonderful. I mean, these are the kind of eggs I want to be buying. Certainly.
Yeah, and the Amish, they did that on, I watched them go on CNN. They were out of Lancaster. They had these huge chicken farms that they were doing. You know, the Amish have gotten into big business too, trust me. And but their form or way of farming is like indigenous. There's something to be learned about the way of approaching what you do. You know, the way you grow your food and why you're doing it. That somehow is how you bless water. You somehow imprint your food with something more than just what we would call nutrition.
Right. Yeah, because it's, again, if you are what you eat, you want to make sure what you're taking in has...
Yeah, the new saying now, the new saying is, it's no longer you are what you eat, it's whom you feed.
Oh, boy.
Well, you're only 10% human, and the rest of you is a bunch of bacteria and water transport processes, and so everybody's homeostasis is different. And some people are a little more reactive here and a little more rashy there, and this or that. That's that parasympathetic nervous system thing that Puarich et al. Started talking about. And everybody's ratchet on that is different, and you can change some of it. It can be reprogrammed, like allergies. You can actually eliminate allergies, believe that or not. And you take chlorotimetron. This is a pharmaceutical way of masking the symptom, and it's not going after the root cause, which is histamine release. Histamine release is done with hypnosis. There it is. Read it and weep. That's what I train SEALs and astronauts with.
Well,
Make
again,
it Superman.
I like the suggestion because it's what is going to give you a skill in the face of some of these things that are coming up that you will have at your fingertips to make yourself more comfortable or your family more comfortable. So skills like that are critical, as well as knowing what to grow, how to take care of your chickens or whatever animals you're raising for a food supply. I mean, all of these things are so important to know, but as you've mentioned, with the way our food supply is designed now and how it works, something goes down. We're going to have empty shelves in the supermarket, and then we'll have the police coming to break up fights. So if the police are even operational at that point. So that's why I think growing your own food is so important, and you just gave us a wonderful fertilizer mix that will make our plants happy.
Well, that's for your garden and things.
Yeah, this is very important. Now, you mentioned something. I saw this in your brochure. There is something that there are a few crops you can plant that give you an amazing output. And can you reference some of those crops for us?
What are you talking about? Biomass yield for solar alcohol where you have a huge production. They used to try corn. Corn rapes the soil, doesn't work. Jerusalem artichokes were used because they have a big biomass yield. But the one you want to grow in Boston would be a Quaker Quill, number 8. That's a cultivar of comfrey. Russian comfrey. That will give you 100 ton of wet washcloths per acre. What a nightmare. But think of the bricks of sugar that you're going to get out of that. That's a lot of biomass. And if you have conveyors where you conveyor this wet glop into big stills, you can have some of the finest Jack Daniels I've ever made. I'm going to run my 280Z. I have a Dachshund 280Z that I...
He's doing this thing with alcohol. Helene, he's trying to get us drunk.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling
wrong alcohol. We're going to do a wood alcohol, not a grain alcohol.
I'm just kidding. But Rick, also you talk about people should obviously grow the kinds of things that they like to eat, whether it be tomatoes or cucumbers or some of these.
Spices are good. Anything that you do grow. We have discovered in permaculture that if that garden is more than 60 steps from the kitchen, you won't use that garden half as much as if it's closer to home. And so you could have in downtown Boston, you could have planter boxes with spices in it that are perennial, and you prune them and you keep them growing and then replace them when they wear out. Or you could do the same thing with mushrooms. There are whole plethora of pharmaceutical mushrooms that are for diabetes, Hep C, Lyme's disease, cancer, and, go figure, high performance. Not just for healing yourself, but they make you into a Superman. And the cordyceps sinensis, for example, that little one there, that actually delivers oxygen to the body on a cellular level. Your body can't get enough oxygen. Cancer is blown away as a byproduct. It's not about it being an anti-tumor drug. It just does that as a byproduct, just like your blood sugar swings because of polysaccharides. What is a polysaccharide? Polysaccharide is a big sugar molecule where sugar is, let's say, 1 inch long. A polysaccharide might be 3 feet long. It's a big sugar. And when it breaks down, it releases oxygen, maybe 100 molecules in one molecule. So it's a big sugar with a lot of oxygen in it. And as it breaks down, that oxygen is released on a cellular level, and everything functions better. ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That's what it's all about.
And mushrooms, now that's something that people can grow in pretty much of a darkened area, correct? You don't need a lot of sunlight?
You do ball jars, and you have a little storage room, where you have it refrigerated, and you can do the temperature up and down a little bit. And when the growing medium is pretty much gone, it's mostly, mycelium, you would then dehydrate it. And you can buy that, but, at $40 a kilo, I mean, that's like that's less than $20 a pound. You can't, and that's dried. That's not, which is probably $2 a pound, which is cheaper than the agaricus. Oh, by the way, the mushroom you buy at Safeway is agaricus. That's not the Agaricus blazei that comes out of Brazil, but it's an agaricus species, which means it has the polysaccharides and beta-glucans in it, just like reishi and maitake. It's agaricus, and that's just a normal store-bought mushroom that also grows in yards in Boston everywhere. I've been there and picked it.
Yeah, and that's an important thing for people to know because, again, you've got your herb section of the garden, you've got your vegetables that you're growing, hopefully, that you like, and then on top of that, you could also could be growing your own mushrooms. That would be another, not just a food source, but a health source, is what you're saying.
Well, it's
correct?
part of your herbal pharmacy part. Yeah, you want to grow garlic, you want to grow peppers, cayens. What they do, like golden seal, what they do is they elevate the body temperature just ever so slightly, which means you have a bacterial or a light viral, it'll burn it out of your body, like an induced fever. That's essentially what hot foods are about. Not black pepper. Black pepper is different. Black pepper is mostly 2,4-D. We couldn't make or use 2,4-D in the United States, so what did we do? We sold it to India, and then they sold it back to us as black pepper.
Oh, that's
how's
funny.
that one feel? See, it's time to wakey and
yeah,
realize.
It's time to wakey.
Yeah, it's that our food choices are, extremely limited because of our database, and it's time to, if you have control of your own food, heirlooms, where you're growing from the same seed each year rather than you've got some genetic weird thing that who knows what it does. Because what they're doing, Monsanto now, is with sunflowers are actually growing pharmaceutical drugs, inoculants for plague and things like that in sunflowers, and then they extract that as the vaccine. And the bad news is that sunflower escapes, and that is now in our food chain. Oh. That's what's happened with corn. And when you talk about wheat, it isn't the gluten. It's like the галладin and the galactomorphin. The galactomorphin is an opiate that hits the receptor sites in your gut and makes you want to have some more, and you feel satisfied and all good after eating a bunch of sugar. Hoorah. Mm-hmm. And it's toxic.
So scary because you're talking about manipulating the food supply.
Well, yeah. I mean, wouldn't you if you were... Listen, Monsanto was a weapons company for DuPont in the 40s and the 50s, making paraquat, 2,4-D, and Agent Orange. And then in 1999, they renounced their weapons thing and decided to go into seed control. enter, Microsoft and Bill Gates and all of that crappy thing that happened. And then they moved into Monsanto's GMO program. The state of Connecticut, right next to you, had a GMO law, labeling law, that they took off the ballot, and the governor announced the reason it went off the ballot is they could not afford a court case against Monsanto. Monsanto was bigger than the state of Connecticut. Now, it's bully boys and corporates trying to be humans, which they're not. And now they're not even after GMOs. They're altering wheat, specific genes in wheat. They have transgenic soybean is now a delivery system for inoculating our children. We no longer need to give them a needle and put it in their food.
Oh, boy. Well, again, this is all the more reason for people to pay attention to where they're getting their food from, and hopefully start growing their own and become more self-reliant, whether it's a community garden effort, a neighborhood garden effort, or just you're doing it on your, by yourself. Because, again, this is a very frightening thing that the food that you're eating could be killing you. And with this whole Monsanto nightmare, that's definitely going to be killing us if we don't.
Well, that's the tip of the iceberg. Land O'Lakes is right in there. There's a bunch of them.
I'm going to be up all night worried about this.
Yeah, Monsanto is actually now no longer part of DuPont. It was a division of DuPont. It's now, go figure, bigger than DuPont. And I was military. I was Navy intelligence. I worked for old man DuPont, and he reported to Rockefeller. And DuPont was keeper of the keys, the technical thing. That's all changed now. It's different now. But when in the 70s when I was working, that's the hierarchy as I remembered it. And technology is only a part of the big picture. And I'm going to say something now that's really important. I am ashamed by saying, in my opinion, I think that science has failed humanity. And that's me saying that. And I have a fiduciary responsibility to say something about that and to try to actively begin with our children. That's where it's going to be. It won't be us. It will be the children under 5 that actually literally change this world.
Well, that's good that somebody will, because we really need a change from this type of weapon-related food production. It's I don't even have words to describe how disgusted I am by what has happened with our food supply because of Monsanto, and this horrific effect that they're creating. And I know you've written an article, Rick, about how they're also looking at how to use the gut in another kind of form of mind control.
Yes, that's a new series, yeah. The New Directions of Mind Control. When I was military, I worked out of anesthesiology. Our mind control was Delgado in the one lab, doing chip implants in monkeys, more in another lab doing ketamine, telepathy, and BZ studies. And then what I was doing was the microwave studies, what you call synthetic telepathy in the early mind wars, the woodpecker, the blah, blah, blah. I was MRU. Now, that's all changed. That's 40 years ago. Commando Solo, one of the things I developed with microwave, is the first ordinance that is used against any kind of military operation against another country. In Afghanistan, before any bombs or ordnance was dropped, it was Commando Solo. And that is 40-year-old technology. Today, we have discovered we have a second brain. The gut has neurotransmitters. It's convoluted. It has a concept of gating. A lot of our feelings come from the gut. They do not come from the brain. They do not come from the heart. Each of those organs have their own infrastructure of what they're doing, and this is all part of what I'm writing about is the non-local mind in a holographic universe. It's the idea that with our awareness and responsibilities, taking responsibility, we most likely now can literally change the movie.
We can, but again, there's so much that's being controlled, and again, this food supply issue is a big one. This controlling us through our second brain in our gut, which, as I mentioned to you earlier, I have a manuscript from Dr. Andrea Puharich that is talking about the second brain also, and how critical it is that you eat the right foods so that your chakra energy and everything else is connected the way it should be. So if that's distorted, if that is abused in some way by the wrong food or Monsanto's, meddling, then we are in a bad way. We are no longer able to make responsible.
Let's bring it into more focus. How about going to a fat doctor? Is that doctor going to be able to make you well?
I don't think so.
That's the problem. Everybody is, it's a metaphor. If you don't have a physical platform from which to launch, your spiritual body is your physical body as a metaphor. And it's like a shadow. And if the one is not there right, how can the other? Higher form of spirituality. That's what this whole movie, Astral City, was about. It's absolutely worth reviewing. Trust me when I tell you that. I haven't seen anything. It's like Cloud Atlas. It's going to require some scholastic scholarship to get it. It's in Portuguese, which means it's got an English subtitle, which is a little irritating. However, the conceptual parts of it would suggest that the physical plane isn't real. This is just where you go to hallucinate and have fever.
Well, not only are we hallucinating, but we're having
problems. That's what you would call reality. It's not real. It's not real at all, and it's based on your illnesses, whether you're, guilt on yourself or whatever. We tend to cloud our realities by our belief systems, our assumed truths. That's why being able to change a belief system, like you would a pair of clothing, where it's no longer your driver, it is a tool to, achieve your goal or purpose.
Well, don't you think, Rick, you're talking about a paradigm shift. For so many years, we gave over all our power to the doctor. The doctor, MD, is a minor deity. Everything the doctor said we did. We gave over all our power to the government. We just turned it over, to every agency.
Well, the doctor turned his power over to the actuary, and the actuary turned his power over to the law, the lawyer, and the lawyer turned his. Listen,
but now,
there's a lot of accountability here.
Right, but now
doctors are no longer doing medicine. They are absolutely ruled by the actuary in terms
but again,
of
what
tests.
we're talking about, because I want to make this point, and I think this is what you've been trying to say also in a roundabout way, which is we're now changing the paradigm to take back responsibility for the self. So even our own
that's your garden. That's a metaphor.
There you go.
So
that's our own food, our own medicine, our own the ability to do hypnosis to control pain. All of these things that are really within our grasp, that we're starting to take back our power as individuals. And I really like seeing that. That's why I think it's so important what you have to share about gardening and the herbs.
Well, it's a metaphor. Everything is like a metaphor. Chauncey Gardner in the movie Being There, that whole idea of him being, it's the internal landscape that we choose and the way we want to see what's happening. We can look at the world as going down into 2012, Mayan calendar, and end of days, that kind of thing. Or we could see it as there's a change happening in men, and it is exciting for the possibilities of what could happen with these. That's right.
Yes, it's very exciting. And I have a couple of comments, too, from the chat room also. Mary Ann is recommending something called the Zero water filter. She's using that. She says she's got it on Amazon, and it is better than Brita, but it's a little more expensive. So she's suggesting that. And also someone just wrote in and said that the movie you're suggesting everybody watch, Astral City, is available on Hulu. So
that is correct.
It's
free.
That's where you can go get it.
That person, nice going. That's what I'm talking about. It's like information should not cost anybody anything. It should be accessible as part of our divine right. It's not. So there's that guy doing responsibility in Hulu. Go get him.
Yeah, exactly. So now, going back to gardening, are there any other vegetable crops that you think are extremely important? Obviously, garlic you mentioned, which is a big one.
I like echinacea and gustifolia, not purpurea or the Rebecca's. I like echinacea and gustifolia. I like good garlic. I grow basil. Basils, besides washing marijuana out of your hair follicles, it actually, that's how you can pass basils and the carboxyl. There are all kinds of essential oils, that's that woman again, that are used in the spice trade that make foods more interesting. And that is where we learn how to mix certain kinds of things for flavor blends. That's what they call perfumery. You know, the idea of a top, middle, and low note, and somehow you have some kind of a body happening there. That's why coffee, everybody likes coffee, and then they hit it with mocha, and all of a sudden coffee goes from 20 calories a cup to 200. It tastes good, but it isn't as good for you, that kind of thing. I love a mocha, but it isn't right.
Yeah, but again, taking that power, being prepared, because if you're not, as you mentioned when we talked earlier today, Rick, and you made a very profound statement, if you don't have your water, and if you don't have your food, and if you don't have the medical supplies on hand that you need, you are going to end up in a FEMA camp.
Or you're going to need something like an infrastructure of some kind, which right now in all states is FEMA.
Yes.
And that's what's happening.
And that
Every
is what's happening.
single state has FEMA camps.
That statement you made to me earlier really stuck with me. I was like, gee, people really need to know that it's an either-or situation. Either you learn this stuff now or you go to FEMA camp, which is like you said, it's like you called it the California Hotel. I would call it the Roach Motel.
The Roach Motel at least feeds hummingbirds and woodpeckers. But, that's why we call them cockroach hotels. That's food camp for birds. We have those here too, but it's more than that. It is what comes with sovereignty. And the Greek had a word for it called autark, supreme individual sovereignty. This is when you have union with self, you have self-realization, which means you know what your illnesses are, and rather than them becoming limitations, you now have containerized them so that you can use them as a tool. I have personality flaws, and what I've tried to do is so understand them that now they don't limit my message, they enhance it. And that's what each of us is doing right now in what we call the walk of life, is we're trying to go from being in a karma to a more dharma place. That's the destiny thing your guy's going to talk about next week, the idea of your purpose and what your purpose was, which is critical in the scheme of things.
Exactly, and I love what you're saying, especially about the sovereignty aspect, because we are sovereign beings. However, again, over the years, over the centuries, we've given away a lot of our power, and it is time to take it back, because the alternative is not pretty. I mean, to think about having to spend your life in a FEMA camp, which, as you mentioned, a lot of them used to be prisons, and they look like prisons when you look at them.
Well, at least they can handle a large body of people in a very simple, low infrastructure. That's what it's about. The privatization of these FEMA camps is the part I'm scared about, and when we have a separation of class and state. That's where it'll go. Animal House. Just like George Orwell.
Yeah, I mean, these are times when you really have to make very careful choices. You have to choose well, and you have to think about, what am I going to need if this kind of thing happens? It's no longer just
and the last thing I could leave very important is having a game plan. If the grid goes out, let's say the radio's out and TV's out and there is no telephone, satellites are down for 2 days, and your husband is at the other end of the town, do you have a game plan where you know what he's going to do? That is what is now needed, is that you lay out contingency battle plans of who goes where, when, if there's no way to communicate. And that would be the first thing that I would start planning, is having a game plan of, okay, if this happens, we're all going to meet at Grandma's house. that kind of thing, where you have a known game plan. In the event, you have no way of confirming it.
So the first thing is establishing some place that all the family members can come to, like in a safe manner.
A staging area, yeah.
A staging area, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that's where you're going to stay, but a staging area where we'll all meet at Grandma's house before we go up to the woods or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
It isn't going to be that bad. I don't think it's going to be like the movies. It might with certain regions, like a Katrina or a Hurricane Sandy. It might. But my guess is it will be more regionalized, not global. And if Japan goes, that will be a global event. Right now, there is no ice at the North Pole, and that's why the Canadian weather is looping down to Alabama right now. That's why we're having this very strange behavior in different parts of the country. And the chemtrails, all the rest of it that's going on is just extra, white noise in the big scheme of things. Hard to know what's causing what anymore.
It really is, and I'm glad you said that. I think that's true. I have two more comments that people wanted to share from the chat room. Someone's recommending stinging nettle plants because they're so easy to grow.
You know the primary use of nettle?
Soup.
Yeah. The primary use of nettle in the world markets today, I happen to know, is Clairol, division of Revlon, for herons.
Well, they're recommending it because
they
it has
do 400 barrels of nettle. That's a lot of nettle, trust me, when they melt it down. So that's it. All comes from Europe.
Another good herb to grow, someone's recommending from the chat room, is cilantro. And that's a good detoxifier. And it also is good, they're saying, for arthritis.
Well, coriander, yeah. Coriander is one of the ones we grow here in our state. We have 4,000 acres here of coriander. Cilantro is the leafy part of it rather than the seed. There's others. We do celery. That's another good one. And sesame. There's all kinds of nigellas for seed, that like Dutch poppy that are used in flavoring. Yeah, and fennel and anise. They're all in different states. We have our equivalents. That's the part that I liked about Gurdjieff. He said to eat your environment, where it's like you climatize and to a region and habitat. Like if you live on the coast, you should eat fish. That kind of metaphor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it makes perfect sense. I like
we're
that.
All different. Midwest is different. And the kinds of water that they would drink, compared to the coastal towns and things like that. Is it hot back there?
It's cold here.
Is it cold? It's hot.
It was 70 yesterday. Yeah.
70?
But tonight,
yesterday it's cold.
I'm up in the rural area, and it is going to go down below freezing tonight. I had to go cover
up all my... What happens to all your budding plants now?
That's the problem. I ran around like an idiot outside, covering everything up.
That's what you have to do. Just a tent over them will help it, even if it's a partial tent, throwing a tarp over it.
That's what I did. I had to. I was just frightened. What I'd see in the morning if I didn't cover them up.
Well, we have pears out here in Oregon where I am. Namas and some of the other big ones do pears, and everything's budding. And if we had a freeze now, the crop would be gone. And Texas went from 90 degrees down to 40 in one day.
Wow.
That's a 50-degree swing, and it's just the weather out here on the West Coast is very strange. When I was in Missouri last week, it was also very, very weird. I understand the East Coast is starting to warm up a little bit. Chattanooga and Atlanta are having some nice weather. So. That's
far from here, though. We really need that warm weather.
Yeah. But there's a tunnel that runs all the way down underground.
Well, this has really been a fascinating discussion, and I have to say, Rick, it's so hard for me to keep up with you sometimes.
I'm sorry. I don't mean...
Oh, no, I'm laughing at myself, Rick.
He's the man who knows too much. He just knows so much.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I know last time you were on, I replayed the show again to listen to it all over again, and I'll do the same thing this time because you have some remarkable information and some great tips.
I love your remarkable. I love your accent. I just totally love it. It's so charming. It really is lovely. brings back my graduate school days. I could tell what part of Philadelphia someone was from by the way they said "woulda." Oh, you're from the east side, yeah.
Rick, you got to promise you'll come back and talk about Dharma next time, because I know that's the next book on your list, and we'd love to hear you talk about that. But tonight has been very valuable for everybody that has had a chance to tune in and who hopefully will listen to the archives later if they missed the show. But this has been great. You're, again, giving us all so much wonderful information, survival information that's very critical. So thank you.
You bet.
Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much.
Thank you for your time, Rick.
You bet.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Good night,
Bye,
Rick.
Rick.
Yeah. I mean, he's just remarkable, isn't he?
He's the best. We love this guy, and we just got to keep him coming back. You know, he writes like books every few months. You know, he's just amazing. He's such a genius, and all the information is just so important for us to hear, especially now, with times being the way they are.
Well, I love how he's so eloquent about talking about people taking their power back.
Yeah.
Because that really is, you know, a huge message in spirituality today with everybody who's an energy worker and connected to other realms and all of that. He's just so eloquent about it, and it's absolutely true.
It is. It's time. You know, people need to stop giving their power away and thinking somebody else is going to do this for them. It's just not the way it's going to happen. So it's, you know, I just love that he came on the show tonight and shared so much good information with everybody. And our chat room, everybody came up with some really great questions and comments, and it's been a very lively evening.
It has, but I have to apologize. I think that there was something going on the board because I saw several calls just drop.
Yeah, I saw that, and I saw people struggling to stay on the chat board. They were logging in and logging out, and I don't think they meant to do that. So something was happening. But you know what? We survived, and the show went on, Helene. The show went on.
Yes, it did, and next week it's going to go on again, and we'll have Michael Chaplin on next week, and that will also be a fascinating interview.
It's going to be great, talking about destiny. So I hope you'll all join us next week again for another exciting show with Supernatural Girlz. Make sure you go back to our website, supernaturalgirlz.com. Subscribe to the newsletter so you can be updated on all our shows and giveaways and contests and things like that.
Thank you, Patricia. I always love being on the radio with you.
And same here. You.
Thank all of our listening audience tonight. We appreciate your listening. And as Patricia said, you know, make sure you sign up so you can win that book from Dr. Miller, and also one next week with Michael Chaplin as well. So we're going to say good night, Patricia.
And good night, Helene, and good night, everybody in the audience.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with